at principles or what do you call it, the incredible principles of how to prosper and how to succeed. And I was thinking of plan worship, as you say, but I was shocked that the Lord told me about don't worship success, don't worship money. Now, and I wonder, and I ask myself, if we look at the network of everybody listening to me here now, I don't know those who are listening to me online, I don't know if any of us are worth about 100 million Naira Nigerian currency. And I don't even know if any of us, if the average number of people here financially has about 10 million in their account or in their investments. So it's essential. Any theology that shy away from the issues of money is not biblical. And it's not even true to life. Now, many people are not in church today because they don't have the money to pay for the transport to come here. Our church is even located outside the main town. And if a man is to come to church on a Sunday, on a Thursday, and on a Tuesday, and all the other days, he will need some money with him. So in a sense, anyone who is in church today is richer than most of the poor people. Now, for you to be able to live, you need clothes. And if you come to a church where people dress well and look well, you will feel really, really out of place. And you won't want to come to this church. And so if you don't even have money, then it will determine your spirituality. Now, for the average church or ministry to succeed, they need consistent flow of money to pay the tithe, to sustain the infrastructure, even if they have infrastructure. So you need money. To make the church beautiful as it is, as we have now, we have to consistently flow out money. To get your children to good schools and get them well trained, you need money. And in fact, your finances will determine your longevity because it determines the kind of food you can afford. Now, the healthy food are not too expensive, but are not easily available. And in many parts of the world, they are expensive because the focus is on healthy food. In fact, it's even said that if you cannot take care of your household, you are more than an infidel. And so if you don't have money, and you're not able to take care of your household properly, which includes your family and extended and immediate, then you are not considered a believer. So in a sense, money is an issue we cannot shy away from. And if you look through the Old Testament theology, you begin to find out that if you don't have money or if you are poor, you are considered to be someone who is cursed by God. When we look at Deuteronomy 28, the first part of that Bible talks about prosperity, large prosperity. And then below it talks about curse, which include poverty. Scientific advancement, industrial advancement, all depends on the power of money. And I can tell you that, in a sense, spiritual advancement requires money. For example, if on a Sunday morning, every Sunday morning, we provide food, if every Sunday morning 10 or 20 people decide to leave their car just to bring people into the church every day, you know what I mean? Just drop their children or their wife early, and then my church is sent out. I have about 20 church buses, cars volunteer to bring in people with buses, and you feed them every day. This place will be crowded. money even determines who you marry. whether we like it or not, subconsciously, no woman wants to marry somebody who is poor. And then also, no man wants to have a liability. So in a sense, where you cannot provide for your home, you have a sense of really not being fulfilled. There's something lost. You can't cover it with all spirituality, prayers, and so on and so forth. So money is important. And making it look as if it's not important is wrong. And the principles in the Bible, which if we follow them thoroughly and truthfully, there's no way we can be poor. Because they have to do with hard work, they have to do with honesty, they have to do with responsibility. And so when you say a young man who is not wealthy enough to take up responsibility, I get to wonder whether he's really living out the Christian faith. Now, having said that, the Christian religion, as far as when I was born and I knew about it, well, there could be many things that happened long before I was born, started with the principle of volunteering to be poor in order to face the kingdom. And so many Christians choose poverty so as to be more effective spiritually. Now, the Catholic Church, among the priests, there are 4 vows. Among those 4 vows the Catholic priest took is the vow to poverty. So the average priest owns nothing. He stays in the parish house, he's fed in the parish house, he doesn't have mansions, he doesn't even have a wife. But then when Pentecostal Christianity came into being, there came another theology, which some people call prosperity gospel. There's nothing like that anyway. But because the emphasis was prosperity. And so when you come to any Pentecostal or charismatic church, it was always, you need to be wealthy, you need to be rich, you need to have everything the world provides. So in a sense, if you come to a Pentecostal church and majority of your testimonies is always based on money. But then this Pentecostalism has existed in this country now for over 6 decades or more. Has it made the people richer? Not so much. Now, a few people in the Pentecostal churches have been rich, their pastors or so on, but the general Pentecostal, average Pentecostal, hasn't really been richer as a result of this surge of this gospel. So 2 things are there. Either the gospel is faulty, or the principles are really not principles that make people rich. And then when you look at the average pool of those who chart prosperity, they're really not so wealthy. They live from hand to mouth. And very few of them die with large investments for their children or children, as the Bible has promised. I agree with a few of them are rich, but not majority. Then to ask another question, does this teachings itself, has it improved the economic indices of their community, of their nation? Not so. If Pentecostal Christianity started about 5 or 6 decades ago, a country like Nigeria has remained poor. Now, some of the countries like Kenya and South Africa, Uganda, Tanzania, have mass people coming in, especially under the influence of great pastors, prophets, those who do miracles. But actually, I've visited some of these nations. I've gone to Kenya. I've gone to Uganda. I've gone to all these places. But those countries are poor. And the people are really poor. So in a sense, let's look at it two ways. If you focus on a theology of poverty, you don't get the right picture. Then if you focus only on the theology of wealth, you don't even get the wealth. So what is wrong? Now I'm going to start it from the other flip side to talk about the danger of worshiping success and money. And if time permits, I will just give you 2 or 3 principles that I think can really translate us from becoming financially dependent to becoming independent. Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. I'm reading from the New King James Version. No one can serve 2 masters. This was from the highest and most superior wisdom any man can ever have. In fact, it wasn't human, but superhuman. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot, emphasis, serve God and mammon. Simply, you can't serve God and money. So you can see the paradox. Why many of us in the Pentecostal fold wants to serve God and money? The result, the reality of it is that we are not getting the money and we are not getting the God. And you wonder why? Because our average churches are becoming more corrupt, more sinful. I'll tell you somebody, for the past 60 years or so I've lived, or maybe let me say all the time I've known the Lord, I've hardly had an unbeliever abuse me. I've hardly had a Muslim abuse me. I have colleagues who are unbelievers, who are Muslims. In fact, they fear and reverence me. Every insult I've ever had in my life has come from Christians. Simple. Everyone who has ever been rude to me in my life, in all the positions I've taken, maybe apart from some few, directly has been Christians. So in a sense, it doesn't change our bad behavior. That's what I mean, our bad behavior, that includes me. And as I said, it doesn't make all of us really wealthy. Somebody was speaking in a drama and was laughing at they take 4 offerings in many churches. And someone has told that to me in our church. And I told her that, do you know that despite this church has the average people in this church are the highest echelon in this society. An average senior registrar earns more than a professor. And there are quite a lot of them in this church. But that after our 4 offerings on Sunday morning, sometimes we don't even get to 50,000. I mean, this week alone, we didn't have money to buy fuel. And our fuel is about 50 or 60,000. We didn't have money. We have to source for money from somewhere to buy fuel. So that's how our 4 offerings are big. And so it is not possible to serve God and then to serve money. And I'm going to tell you how we fix it together. Now let's look at the other side. How do you know you are serving success and money? For a very long time, they said there was a divide in American, I don't understand, but I think it's so. Somebody wrote a book. I said in the past, America emphasized integrity, rule of law, doing right. Then there came a time the American emphasized the success ethics, but I don't think there could be a dividing line like that. And America, the only successful president has the car, the limousine, the big houses, and so on. But all those things are really being taken care of by the banks. They are not real money. Now, how do you know? You see, it's not the wealth you have that makes people believe that you are saving money. As I've told you, those who talk more about money are not wealthy. It's your mindset. It's your mindset. And no one can tell about you what's in your mind than you. What you think all day will determine whether you are serving success or you are serving money. And Jesus put it this way, that what a man's heart is where his treasure is. Is your mindset. And who can know what's in your mind? And so when we come to church, or when we live our life, and our mind is obsessed with money, with success, with such things like, who am I not? Then we have started worshiping success. Then secondly, is the meaning of our definition of success. If you, within yourself, you consider yourself to only be successful, if you have the cars, you have the houses, you have all this, then in a sense, not always so, there may be some degree of idolatry in you. Then the third thing is, who is your master? Who is your master? Who determines who is the one governing your life? If somebody says who is very poor says he wants to see you, and then someone who is very rich says he wants to see you, would that change your theology? Then what matters to you? Your priorities. A simple thing like deciding to cook beans and say you can't come to church on Sunday morning. Or that you have a business to do, you just can't come to church. Or trading on the time for church, you just tell her your priority is. It's something subtle. Or you are reading for an exam, I said, no, I can't pray today. And that can easily tell us where your priority is. Then the other thing is, what is the mission of your life? What gives you the best satisfaction? What is the mission of your life? It's only to ask you, my friend, what is the mission of your life? Jesus was so clear about his life. He said, my meat is to do the will of him that have sent me and to finish his work. That's his meat. What is the mission of your life? One very rich man, not very far from our environment, was one of the wealthiest men in this country, the country of Nigeria, was interviewed shortly before he died. Not long after that, he died. And he said, I asked him, what is his philosophy of life? He said, my philosophy is to make money and more money. The man was honest. So, what is the mission of your life? What is the priorities of your life? Do you know what Jesus told them when they were looking for Jesus? What did he say? Why are you looking for me? Don't you know I will be after my Father's business? It was clear that anytime you met Jesus, the Father's business was there. I mean, it's not a matter of, I'm going to be speaking to a group of people next week, and there's a secular meeting. And one of the topics I read when I said they should connect to the higher power. Then shortly before I went to print, I said, no, don't say connect to the higher power, say connect to your God. I'm not going to be apologetic about that. And so, understanding mission influences your values. I mean, why do we have problem in our marriage? Because sincerely speaking, many Christians don't know why they're married. You see, a man says, since I'm married, you have not progressed. A woman says, I'm married, you have not succeeded. Why did you marry? What's the essence of the mission of marriage? And then you compare yourself with someone who is not even married because he's that, or he's the other one, or a pastor who has all the time to go around the world. You compare yourself with that. Why are you married? And who are you married to? Then if you are miserly, you see, one big way to know whether you are money is your God is the quality of your giving. I didn't say the quantity of your giving. I mean, there are certain people who will give you just a recharge card, and they've given you everything they have. And there are some people who will give you $100,000, and they've scrapped it. Once you are miserly, and you know how you get to know you are miserly? It's not what you give, but what you retain for yourself. When we were building this church some time ago, I was busy building somewhere. And then it was time to build this church. And then we needed a lot of money to build the church. And as usual, give 10,000, give 5,000. Then I happened to preach in a church in Lafayette in US. And then the man asked me, oh, you are building a church. When do you hope to complete the church? It just flashed on my mind. I said, when do we hope to complete the church? At that time, and even till now, I was the largest giver in this local church. And I said, with all I am giving, I told the man about 10 years. Then when I got back, the Lord said, you can afford to get $1 million for your foundation and then throw 10,000 or 20,000 to your church. So I just made a decision, that building must stop. And I stopped it. And I said, I will not build that building till the church is completed. You see, how does the Bible describe a miserly person? I mean, dictionary it says lack of generosity, stingy, giving or spending the smallest amount possible. You see somebody who's very wretched, struggling, and you give a person 5,000 naira, and you spend 25,000 naira on a high heel shoe. That's stingy. That's miserly. We have a house help to help you in the house. All day the person is working, and then you give the person 2,500. I say it's also feeding, eating with me, eating and so on and so forth. And then the person may be just a mother. So when you are miserly and stingy, by the amount of money you give, that demonstrates to you your problem. And that's why the Lord talked about a percentage of tithe, just to say that it's not saying that a percentage tithe is big, but indirectly saying that it's not the tithe that is important, but what you do with the 9/10. I know when people were giving offering, the widow gave a mite, but that's the person that Jesus saw. Why? Because he knew this was a very large amount of money. Sincerely speaking, there's a time in my life I give you 50,000, it may not just mean anything. But I can tell you, there's been time in my life when we got all the money I have, and I have resources, will not be up to 1 million. Or even less than that. All the banks I have will not be up to 1 million. I mean, like this December, I have to give almost everything that I had. When I notice this one have a need, I just give. 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 Because December is only my time to just give out. Because Jesus was watching that rich man giving $100,000. And when you are a billionaire, $1 billion, what does that mean? Then, what motivates you? What drives you? What keeps you awake all night? I know some of you, if you are reading for an exam, you will spend the whole night reading. You take a coffee and you drink it. If you are doing a research, you spend all day analyzing. You leave your children, you leave your spouse, you go out to analyze. Some of us who are doing business, we spend all time doing business, but when it comes to church, let's have an all night, there are bottlenecks. Let's do 2-hour prayer, we are grumbling. So what drives us? I mean, I'm not talking of you, I'm talking of myself. I've always tried to quantify the times I spend in these secular things, although I like not to be compartmentalized, and the times I spend in spiritual things. And looking back, I can see that all the labor on these physical things is just trash. Then who are your role models? You see, initially when I, as a Christian, I began to find out that I used to have a friend who talks about Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs, what do you call it, the Microsoft giant, and all of that. And I began to find out that what do we call success? Then I realized that I was just missing it altogether, that these are not my models. And as time went by, we began to see all these models, these rich models we mentioned, we started seeing that they're really not just complete as they are. Then I changed my life completely. And I said, I only want to have one model, Christ. And that turns everything around to me. And so the models that you want to be like has a lot to do with whether you are worshiping money or worshiping success. Then which is the message you listen to and the message you give? I mean, I heard the preachers on one extreme saying, if your pastor is always talking of money, don't go to that church. I think that's very extreme. Because we need all these things to survive. We need all these things to survive. But it's also very much extreme that if I as a pastor look at my message for one whole year, Jesus was only mentioned as a magician who gives money. Then there's a problem. You see, sometimes we don't like to listen to certain messages, not because we are against it, simply because it's not in line with our philosophy. So the messages you listen to will invariably determine whether you are worshiping money or you are worshiping God. Then there's the problem of materialism. Materialism is not so much the money you have. I mean, if I come to my room and I see all these shirts and all these suits and all these things, you know, there was one time a woman, they say, was trying to dispose of her shoes. One great woman like that, I think it took about a year to dispose of all her shoes. Her shoes could just fill up mansions upon mansions upon mansions. Have you seen people go to shops and they buy the same they have? And then when they come back, they find out that they are in the house, they have not used it. And when you ask them, that one is pink, but this one has this one is pink, and that one is pink, but that has a shade of red. And then the person will buy it and dump it. When they look at your Bibles, the books you read, your spirituality, things used for spiritual things is so small, but the things on material things is so large. Then I think you worship money or success when the Lord blesses you. What comes to your mind first? And this is so obvious in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 8. I think I gave them the text. We can go down to that. Deuteronomy chapter 8. Let's go to the first text I give you. I hope somebody is with them there to record what I said. All right, Deuteronomy chapter 8. Let's start from verse 12. I want to read, and I want you to follow me. Now, verse 12. All right, let's start from 11. Beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandments, his judgments, and his statutes, which I command you today, lest when you have eaten and are full and have built beautiful houses and dwell in them, and when your herds and your flocks multiply, and your silver and your gold are multiplied, and all that you have multiplied, and all that you have is multiplied, when your heart is lifted up, and you forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, who led you through that great and terrible wilderness, in which were fiery serpents and scorpions and thirsty land, there was no water, who brought water for you out of the flinty rock, who led you into the wilderness with manna, which fathers did not know, that he might humble you, and that he might test you, to do you good in the land, that you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gained me this wealth. And you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he has sworn to your fathers, as it is this day. You know, there's so much talk about first fruits. When you earn your first salary, you give it out. When you have your first breakthrough, you give a large sum of it. I don't extremely talk about that theology, but when God blesses you with something big, what do you do next? Do you forget where it all started from? Where it all began? On Sunday, someone who doesn't even attend this church, a very prominent person in this church, in this community, has been a dean, came to see me in my office after the hectic service. And he reminded me that I'm his mentor. That he owes a lot to me because he knew where he started from. He's been bigger. He has had more position than I have in this local campus. So when the Lord blesses you, what comes to your mind? I want you to realize that there's always a danger in worshiping success and money. And I would like to swab it quickly before I then say little things and then we close. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, Paul warned us, all of us, including myself. In fact, the whole of 1 Timothy chapter 6 is devoted to this. It says, in verse 6, it says, now godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out, and having food and clothing, with this we shall be content. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Do you know what? The first thing I noticed about money, it can never defend you in the days of God's wrath. It will fly away. With special respect to the dead, I've read about several rich people at the peak of their life. They just suddenly have one disease, and they are dead. It won't defend you. It can buy you medicine, can't buy you health. Can buy you a bed, can't buy you sleep. Can buy you fame, can't buy you favor. Can attract men to you, but it doesn't mean anything to God. And in fact, when you are successful, your money at one point will leave you. Then the second thing, it can't quench your want. And that is why the scripture says that you become greedy. Are you going to many harmful lusts that, you see, I was just talking to someone I was analyzing because I was thinking somewhere that maybe one needs to buy a house. I mean, some of us belong to that nation. I mean, are citizens of other countries. And I said, okay, yes, one needs to buy a house. Now, what age are you? Maybe you are 50, 60. Your down payment for that house, if it's good, 20%, maybe the house is worth about $500,000. 1/5 of 500,000 is what? 100,000. Then you pay all those things, then go on mortgage. And then the mortgage is valued about $2 million, because that's what happens. They won't give you 500,000, they give you about $1 million plus. And then you have to pay it for 30 years. And you are 60. So by 90, you are still paying your loss. If you pay everything finish,